Hello, 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 welcome. Oh, the camera's up there, Faye, just look up there. Welcome to Brew 23 of the Brew from the Bothy podcast. I am Faye, you are very welcome here and thank you for joining me. This is the first podcast of 2026 and I love the turning of the year, and we have got snow which has made it even more special. It started falling yesterday and it's kept on the ground today, and it's quite unusual to get snow in Cheshire, and it's delightful. It's making me giddy. I've just had lunch inside with Matthew, who's working from home today as well, and I was like, what time are you finishing? Can we go outside and have a snowball fight afterwards? Was that, I'm finishing at 6. I was like, were you due to finish earlier and you said later because you don't want to come have a snowball fight with me? Yes. So I need, does anybody want to come and have a snowball fight with me? Make proper use of the snow. I have got my woolens outside doing a snow wash, which I'll talk more about towards the end of the episode if that's something that you're interested in. Let's dig in. I've had a reasonably good couple of weeks. I got lurgade when we went down to see our friends, so pretty much from Christmas Eve until now I'm just like coming out the end of it now. So it's been a good 10 days, I suppose, of just like not a really bad cold, but enough that you just low level don't feel like doing much. So I've had that right the way through Christmas and New Year, and my energy levels are just starting to pick up now, thankfully, which, as I said, I love the turning of the year, so it feels very appropriate that my energy is coming back up. And part of that is around, you might remember I went into hibernation stations back in November, and I maybe got to towards the end of the second week of December, and I could feel my energy rising, my sap rising again. I was like, oh, I'm ready for change. I'm ready to get going again. And the cold kind of forced me to just keep it back a little bit for a little longer. And now if I could have started work a few days earlier this year, I would have done. I'd have been out here working on New Year's Day, but I made myself not. So today is my first proper day back in the office, and I'm looking outside to a beautiful snow scene, and it's really gorgeous. So I'll pop some footage in at the end as well of our little winter wonderland. Let's dig into what have I got for you. How about what I am wearing? Now, I have lots of shawls in my closet, lots of crocheted and knitted shawls, and I haven't really worn them for the last few years. I've worn a lot of nice scarves that I've found in charity shops. Haven't really been wearing shawls, and I'm calling it 2026. I'm coming back into my shawl era. I'm going to pull out all my shawls and start wearing them because they're really grand for just keeping my shoulders and my neck warm, and there's a reason why I made them, and it's a little sad that they've just been sat in a basket, not being worn. So I'm endeavouring to pull shawls out and actually wear them. So this one is called Clean Lines. It's a design by Anna Nikopirowicz, and it is Mosaic Crochet. So I'm going to take it off and then I'll try and put it on delicately again because it's massive. The original isn't this big, but the original, I think, is in a Manos del Uruguay yarn, which is a 4-ply, I think. And I've done this in a heavy lace weight, so it is huge. But look at all that glorious detail in the mosaic. It was really enjoyable to do. I loved that you got these breaks where you were just doing like a single colour, but still with something interesting. And then you had a mosaic section and then some lines and then more mosaic. So it made it really enjoyable. I think had it just all been mosaic, I wouldn't have loved it. I was checking notes and I think I made this 5 years ago. And it has not had as much wear as it should have had. So the heavy lace weight that I used for it was Einband, which many of you will know about. This comes in at 250 meters, 273 yards per 50 grams. So it is quite a nice heavy lace weight. It's one strand, but it does actually have a twist on it, and quite often Einband is used and held double with the ploto loopy that I showed in the last podcast, which was the very friable one that you get in a plate. And by holding this together with ploto loopy, you get a very well structured but airy, beautiful, light, lofty type of a fabric in knit and crochet. And I had lots of this in my stash. I still do. So I wanted to use some of that when I made this version of the shawl. And I wanted a big hug of a shawl as well, because it's lightweight but very warm. So I knew I could take it larger and have something that would really kind of hug me and it would curry me in. And the colours are, I think it's dark heather grey and yellow, but I've linked them all below, and I've linked to an Icelandic seller who is Helen Magnusson, but I also know that you can get this in lots of places. Now, you might think it's a bit scratchy, and it's definitely got a bit of crunch to it, but actually as a fabric, I think it's very wearable. I'm not sure in my hypersensitive era I would want to have it just as a garment, but on top of like another layer, this is a merino dress that I've got on today, it's totally fine, and I can't feel any itch through it. I don't feel any itch at the back of my neck. It's just really nice to wear and so light, but very, very warm. So I'm toasty warm today, and I've been outside dancing about in the snow in this today as well, as you will see from the front cover. So clean lines, the link that I'll provide is for Ravelry, but it was also in Inside Crochet, so I'll pop the link to that as well, because I did have a look on Anna's own website, and I don't think she's done this on her own website other than on Ravelry, so I can't provide another link to you. But you could get Inside Crochet downloaded, or you could go to Ravelry. Basically, they're your options. So, happy to have this on and to come back into wearing shawls again. What else do I have for you? I've got an on my hook. We now have a tradition, myself and my friend Heather, who's a crochet designer. She is Keep Calm and Crochet On, and this is the second year that we've done it. We come up with a design concept, or this year we're sharing a yarn type, and we have to come up with 2 different designs. So the yarn that we both have is this one, which is quite heavily variegated with all sorts of like mauve, purple, a little bit of a rusty orange in there. There's navy, there's teal, there's green. It's got everything in this. It's called Best of Show, and it's one of the variegated yarns from River Knits, and it is their Nen DK, which is 100% Blueface Leicester British wool, and it's spun in Britain and it's dyed in Britain. So really good British yarn if you're looking for one, and the twist on it is fantastic, making it amazing for crochet. So we both have a skein of this. Heather is working on a hat, and I am working up another version of my retro metro cowl, which I showed off last podcast, and I am pairing it with 2 other yarns. So we have, these are both River Knits. This tealy one is called Ocean Vela, and then this is going to be interesting, hold on. This one, this kind of bright olivey green, is called Moosbedeckter Waldboden. No idea what that means, haven't got a clue, but the 3 together just work really nicely. I'm going to keep on going with this. To my mind, there's a little bit too much of the green in with this purple, but I think it's one of those where I have to keep on going because you need to see more of the pattern to see if it's working or not. Right now I think there's a really good contrast between the variegated and the blue, but I don't think the contrast between the variegated and the green is just quite right. So I'm going to keep on going and see what comes out of it. But it was just a way of showing off this pattern in a different light, and also how you can take one skein of variegated yarn, apply it with some single skeins, maybe not just quite so precious, and create a crocheted cowl. So I need to keep on going with this over the coming few weeks. I don't get the pattern rights back until the end of March, so I have no real rush on this, other than I met Heather last week and we both started on our projects with this yarn. I think Heather's probably already finished hers by now, but as ever I have overcomplicated my situation, because why do one skein when you can do 3? As ever. So this one you'll see again when I'm slightly further forward, and I'll either love it at that point or I'll know that the green just isn't greening and I need a different colour in it. So we'll see what happens. So let's move on to off my needles. I did finish a pair of black socks for Jenny's eldest boy. He said thank you for them. I didn't get them both done in time, so I left one with him and then I posted one the other day. So he's now got both and is grateful to have warmer feet. And then I also finished off the pair for my postie, which I really like these socks. I think I might have to make a pair. I've got about 40 grams left, so I might just be able to squeeze a shorter pair out if I did contrast cuffs, heels and toes for my size feet. My feet are slightly bigger than this, but I really like how consistent West Yorkshire Spinners dyeing is. I was able to get from one sock to the other, and this is probably on me and not on West Yorkshire Spinners, I was 2 stitches out on the yarn changeover when I'd finished off the short heel rows, and that is kind of unheard of, like, to have that perfection. And then I'd done something maybe and there's just like an extra little line colour change on one of the socks rather than the other, but that's probably just where my attention had changed and it's on me. But in general, West Yorkshire Spinners dyeing is really spot on. So if you like a really specific yarn dye and you want to know that you can create 2 pretty much identical socks, I think you would struggle to get better than West Yorkshire Spinners, to be honest. These can now be wrapped up and be ready for when my postie next bangs on the door and I can pass them to her. I'm so lucky that my postie's feet are only size 6 and not like a size 14. Maybe if my postie had size 14 feet, I wouldn't offer to make them socks though. So that is what is off my hooks, 2 pairs of socks. I feel like I would have had more of my hooks had I actually been well, but I just needed to relax. There was a day where I was all bundled up, I had my pyjamas on, and I was going to go and do something. It was like a bit of a work thing for a few hours, and Matthew just looked at me and he went, no. It's not very often that that man says no to me, and I was like, no, I'm just going to. He was like, no. You are to go to the living room, you are to sit down, I'm going to bring you hot fluid, you're going to get a blanket under you and you're going to watch trash on TV. You're not doing that thing. And I was like, okay. Look, see, he never says no to me, but it was a very definite, you're going to push yourself too far and bitter for longer. So it was absolutely the right call to make, but at the time I was like, who is this one that's telling me no? It was quite refreshing. I went and did it as I was told, and I am better for it. Then what else do we have on my needles? For the man that now likes to say no, I started, and it's working up really quickly. It is called it's by Pearl Solo. It's by Pearl Soho. Let me just grab the name of the pattern. They call it the Classic Ribbed Hat, and it's a free pattern. I didn't want to pay for a ribbed hat pattern, frankly. I was being mean. I just wanted something that was very plain, just a 1x1 rib so I could get a lot of stretch into it, because this is going to be a double brimmed hat for Matthew for when he's up mountains. The way that they've got the pattern, you know, in some hats where they've got that bit of excess and then you get this kind of nipple. There's no better word of saying it. Like, you get a bit of a extra boob on your head up here with those hats. That is not Matthew. So I need to get the sizing of this just right so that he can double brim it and not have basically a boob on his head. That is... If I made him the full version of the Pearl Soho one, I'll see if I can put a photo here so you know exactly what I'm thinking. But every time I try one on, well, first of all, I think I look like a tit. And second of all, I think it just looks like I've got a tit on my head. So I'll show you. But if I made Matthew that hat, he would never wear it. It would be an absolute waste of yarn and my time. So I need to just make sure that I'm not making it too long so that it will sit further down. And I also need to make sure that the crown decrease ratio works so that he doesn't just still end up with like a mini boob on his head. So I need to make sure I get that right. And one of the reasons I want to really get that right is because I then also want to replicate it in a crochet hat that I want to make using yarn over back loop only slip stitches, which I've started using for a design and I'm really enjoying. But I can see how that stitch would also lend itself to a hat that looks a bit like this. But I want to work it up in a slightly different way, I think. So I need to understand the ratios in this hat to then apply those ratios to the next hat that I want to work on. So I'm really enjoying this. It's a very mindless knit, which, to be honest, all the stuff that I've been doing, the crocheted cowl, the retro cowl, the socks, the hat, have all been very easy repeats to just keep on going. They have not taxed my brain whatsoever, which has been fine. That's exactly what I've needed during this period, because I'm really not capable of any big thinking at the moment. But I have to be, because I have a design that is due and I need to grade. So I need to make sure I get myself better by the end of the week. The yarn that I'm using for this I showed off last time, and it is Sheep Soft DK by Laxton's. It's 100% British wool, and it is a blend of, I'm pretty sure it is Blueface Leicester and Massam. Let me just have it before I tell you that. The shade is Malum. Yeah, Blueface Leicester and Massam. And this is one of my favourite blends. I really enjoy working with it. And this is beautiful to work with. Again, it's got a nice, decent twist on it. And I just love the fibrousness of it. And it's a fairly standard DK. It's coming in at 225 metres, 100 grams. So it's an easy one to be able to swap out with lots of other DK yarns. It's a really decent yardage in it. And it's soft. Matthew, he's not a total wool princess. He does like a certain level of softness with the things that I make him, and I got him to feel this last night, and apparently it's acceptable. So I'm allowed to keep on going with it. We have like a certain amount of banter between us. Like, if anybody else was looking at our relationship, they might think we didn't like each other that much, but we just have a lot of fun together. And it was on New Year's Day, I genuinely couldn't be bothered to cook anymore. So I made rosti, fresh bread sauce, and we had ham left over. It was all just it was a bit dry and a bit beige. I did not enjoy my meal. All of the individual components were really nice, but together it just didn't make an appetizing meal. I couldn't even be bothered to steam some broccoli. I was like, that wasn't good. And his response was, it's not the vilest meal I've ever eaten. So that one's been kept. Anytime one of us wants an opinion on something else, we go, it's not the vilest thing I've ever seen. So, yeah. This is not the vilest wool he's ever put in his hands, so I'm allowed to keep on knitting this hat for him. I suspect I'll have this done before I speak with you next, but great little pattern. I haven't got to the decreasing yet, but it's like, there's a reason why it's free. It is literally a 1x1 rib, and it is cast on this many stitches, work 1x1 until it is this many inches long, go to the crown decrease. Like, there's nothing difficult about this. So I'll link to it below. I've linked to it in the Pearl Soho website, so you can just go straight there. What I would say is, if you want to print the pattern, it wants to print all of the blurb off of the website, but what you can do is delete a lot of the information within your print settings. That's how I managed it, so I was able to delete most of the photos and any information that I didn't need. So it is printable, and you can get it down to, I think I got it down to 1.5 pages instead of, I think it was 10 pages. So there's quite a lot to delete, but if you want to print it, that's what you probably need to do. I will feedback on this and let you know how it gets on, possibly with the photograph with Matthew, or me actually wearing it. There has been no yarn incoming because I went and bought some just before Christmas and I don't need any, and one of the jobs I did over the festive period was to clean out my yarn space a little bit, which I think is always quite a good thing for me to do at the beginning of the year, because it reminds me just how much yarn I have got. Spoiler, it's a lot. I have a lot of yarn. And so I did a bit of a clean up and didn't get to the point of overwhelm, but it was a bit like you don't need to rush to any of the January sales on the yarn front. You don't need any of that. You still have many jumper quantities. You still have lots of single skeins. One of the things I did do was pull out all of my 4-ply variegated yarn, because that isn't something that I'm naturally drawn to. So I've got stuff that I kept that is perfect for knitting and crocheting socks, because it's got some form of other fibre in it, whether that's silk or nettle or nylon. So that's aside. And I've sorted out variegated, I don't know what that is. I've sorted out variegated 4-ply yarn that doesn't have something else that makes it worthy for socks. And then I just need to take a call on them. Am I going to do something with them, or is it time to just sell them onto Vinted? I did a clear out maybe about 6 months ago, and I'm just kind of looking at them all again and reassessing. Do you get to stay in my stash? Will I ever use you? Or do I need to just sell you on Vinted? So I've done that with the 4-ply. I need to now also go through Lace, DK, Sport and Aran as well. Maybe go back through my jumper quantities. That's how I have my stash organised. Most of it is by weight. And then I've got a drawer which is mixed weight, but it is all British yarn. I keep that separate. And then it's separated again into undyed and dyed. And then I also have a drawer which is full of Icelandic yarn from the various trips that me and my dad took to Iceland. So they're like the special drawers of things. And then obviously I have got a separate British one which is full of Joan Orban rivernets and Garthenor because they're like my go-tos, so I keep them separate because I often look to that yarn for projects. So I need to just have another little sort through all the rest of it and see where I'm at with it and what needs to move on to somebody else's home. So that's another piece of work that needs to be done, but there's no rush on that. Right now, because we have got snow on the ground, the sun is shining. It still looks a little gloomy in here, but the sun is shining. And because we had enough snow on the ground, I have been doing snow washing. Do you know what this is? Have you tried snow washing? I'd love to know if you've done it and if you've had success. Basically, it's where we've got really, the snow that we've got is really powdery, floofy snow that's fallen. And so what I've done, I cleared out all of my handmade wardrobe this morning, and I went out onto our lawn area and I popped my jumpers on it and sprinkled them with snow. You only need to leave them out for maybe 15-20 minutes, but mine have been out for a couple of hours. And then I've turned them and I've sprinkled the other side with snow. And before I bring them in, I will agitate both sides. Basically, as I understand it, the granules of the snow pull any dirt and residue to the surface, so that it helps deal with any smells that you might have on your jumpers, any stains that you might have on it, any like little particles of dust and grit that have gotten there. It pulls them all to the surface, and it just gives your woolens a proper winter refresh. So once I've done that and kind of aired them off, I'll bring them inside, and they should dry flat, but I think I've got maybe 10 jumpers out there. So I'm going to put them on the rack and let them very slowly come up to room temperature and make sure that they are thoroughly dried out before I put them away. So I'll probably leave them out in the house for maybe 4 or 5 days to make sure that they're completely bone dry. I've done it before with my blankets. I tend to hang them on the line on really cold, crispy days where I know that it's going to be like 0 or below, and there's a decent wind and maybe a little bit of sun. Then I'll put my woolen blankets out and give them a refresh. But honestly, if this snow stays, because this is so unusual for us, once I've done my woolens, I will then, maybe tomorrow, put all of my woolen blankets out on the snow as well and give them a snow wash. Also, we've got some sheepskin, so I might put the sheepskin rugs out there as well. And I saw somebody done a before and after video of snow washing sheepskin rugs, and the difference was incredible, and it just really revived and refreshed the sheepskin rugs. So I might give that a go as well. But if you've never tried it and you want to have a little go and you want to know what I am talking about, I have popped a link down below, and it is a really good walkthrough of it with Clara Parks. In Clara Parks we trust. She knows what she's talking about when it comes to knitting and woolens. So I went on a little bit of a dive to find you a video that I thought was quick enough but decent enough to tell you what is going on with the system and how it works. So if you've got snow and you haven't tried snow washing yet, give it a go. Also, it's just really fun to be outside and out in the snow. I'm also going to add in, and then I will be quiet for it, a little video that I took out the front of our house just to show you the sun coming up with the snow, and I love how it deadens the noise and everything is just calm and still. So I'll pop that in. And then the final bit that I wanted to kind of chat to you about today is what I think I would like to do in 2026. I've said it before, the turning of the year, but it really gives me a breather to think about what it is that I want for the coming year. And so I've been thinking about this for a few weeks now, what I would love to be focusing in on 2026. And I think the answer is colour work and colour and use of colour, and me getting a little bit more comfortable with trying different colours out and blending different colours together. But my theory is to do that kind of under the banner of colour work techniques. So to get better at all the colour work techniques. So for crochet, it might be doing a little bit more mosaic crochet, tapestry crochet and tarsia crochet. I would really love to find a great technique for hiding where you change colour in crochet. I haven't found it yet, so I'd love to do a little deep dive on how you can do that. I already know how to do it in my knitting, And also for knitting, I would love to get better at intarsia, stranded colour work. I would love to be better at choices for Fay and I knitting, colour choices in particular, and how you pull that colour palette together. So I think 2026 might be the year of colourwork techniques for knit and for crochet, because that really suits my little magpie brain of trying to understand how you can perfect something and bring a level of finesse to it. And I think I could probably do lots of little projects that would sit me in good stead for then tackling larger projects. This is kind of on the back of doing that fateful The Sun sweater that just, I loved the concept of it and it just did not turn out well. And rather than just accepting that, I would much rather go back and just try and learn more and more and more about the different techniques. So I think that's one of my major themes for 2026. The other one that I want to try and do is learning how to knit backwards and or do Portuguese purling. My purling is about a third slower than my knit stitches. And I know from the work that I did in December when I went and tried on loads of outfits in Marks and Spencer's, that seamed jumpers are much better on me. And so that means purling. And I'm shocking at purling. I'm very slow and I want to be faster at it and I want to enjoy it more. So I would like to learn how to knit backwards, which is essentially a purl, without turning your work and doing purl stitches. And I also want to try Portuguese purling to see if that would be faster for me. So I would love to know, do any of you knit backwards or do Portuguese purl? I'm an English flicker, that's how I knit. I've tried continental and it just doesn't sit well with me. So like I know that some of you will be like, just do continental. I just can't. I tension with my right hand. I also crochet with tensioning on my right hand and I have the hook on my right hand. That is my system. That is what I do. So I know for some people continental is faster. It is absolutely not faster for me. So I'm more interested in the backwards knitting or the Portuguese purling. Do you have any good resources that I could look at? What should I be looking for to get really good at it? Because if I can speed up that process and enjoy it, I will tackle lots of different types of projects that I'm not currently drawn to because of the amount of purling. So that's what I'm up to, I think, from a crafting perspective. I don't know whether that will blend itself into the designs that come out this year, because my design calendar is pretty much full up for 2026. I've got commissions on for almost the whole of the year, so they're pretty much set in stone. But I think it's more likely to show up in the podcast in the designs of other people that I am choosing to make and the projects for myself I'm doing. So that's how I think the colour work theme will work. And then for me, like from within the business, because I also like to look at the systems and processes that I use and operate, I really want to get better at basically less but better is where I'm coming up 2026 from. I'm always over promising. I'm always overwhelmed with the amount that I want to get through, because my brain is always telling me I can do more, and I already do a horrendous amount of hours and it still feels like I'm wading through treacle. So in 2026 I'm trying to just sign up to doing fewer things so that I can actually do the things, because what happens is I think I'm going to get through a piece of work. I think it will take me 2 hours. It actually needs 20 hours. And then instead of being kind to myself and saying, well, you needed 20 hours, my inner monologue just trash talks me and tells me I'm stupid, worthless, and that I should have been able to do it in the 2 hours, which is a really toxic way to look at yourself and the output and the work that you do. And it's really horrible. So to stop that, I want to just sign up to doing less so that hopefully there can be a little more self-love going on inside this body, because I am horrible to myself. I would never talk to somebody else the way that I internally talk to myself. So I just really want to try. Like, I'm 48. I'm going to be 49 this year. How have I not sorted this out already? So I'm going to be doing a lot of work inside my design business that will hopefully lead to me being kinder to myself, and mean Fay staying in her bloody lane and not coming out to play. We'll see. That's my aim. That's if I could get to the end of the year or before and not be in that horrible trash talk self-loathing system, that would be really nice. We'll see what happens. It's a work in progress, as with everything in life, but that's where I would love to be. That would be a lovely goal to have for the end of this year. Right. That's probably enough, isn't it? You've had enough now. Thank you for coming and spending some time with me. I hope you've had a really lovely couple of weeks and good festive season. I hope you are well, and I'm going to scoot now because I have to go and brave the roads with the snow and go and do some shopping, because we're now missing some essentials because I haven't left the house for some days. So have a good one. Lovely to spend some time with you. I am waving. Goodbye.